But this webinar is a culmination of a lifelong journey, which is still ongoing, but this is what I found so far. So, anyone have any question, comment? No?
Not so far.
Everybody good? Okay.
Yes.
All right. So, Bree, if you can make me the host again, I'll share my screen and jump right into the presentation. Welcome, Faith. I'm not sure who else has joined. Welcome, welcome. Thanks for coming in. Thanks for joining us. I am the host now. Yay. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. And by the way, this webinar is being recorded. I will have it available for those who might want to watch or listen to it later. Can you guys all see my screen okay?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, good. I'm going to move my, let's see if I can make this different. Okay. All right, so I have you guys up here somewhere on my screen. So this webinar is the introduction to a full series. The full series includes 3 modules outside of this introduction. This is just an overview of what this presentation is all about. This is a journey to radical self-love and self-acceptance. Like I said earlier, I have been searching without knowing that I'm searching. All of us are on some kind of a self-search, get to know self kind of journey, kind of experience. So this is what I found so far. This presentation is a culmination of that. And if you guys can all mute yourselves, that way if there's any background noise that comes in, it doesn't interfere. I'm not sure if anyone is unmuted, but if you can, that would be great. Okay, so I have already introduced myself, the host, Sonia Thames, licensed nurse, hypnotherapist, holistic health practitioner. I help people live their best lives. I help people connect to the truest aspect of themselves. And it could be as simple as feeling better from aches and pains, being relieved through massage. It could be with helping people nutritionally, holistically, with what to eat, what supplements to take, if anything like that is needed, to deeper stuff, internal, I don't want to say mental health, but things that improve how we live within our minds. Help people clear, understand unwanted stressors, just learn how to manage and live in a more holistic, fulfilling way. So that's really kind of the umbrella that my work focuses on. So first thing that I want to ask here is, who am I? Who are you? So who am I here? I'm asking it as though I was you saying, who are you? Not who are you as in what is your name, what's your occupation? How many people here have asked themselves that question? Who am I? Who am I? Have you guys asked yourself that question before?
On a daily basis.
On a daily basis. And if you want to unmute and jump in and share, please do. This is going to be more of an hopefully interactive presentation. What do you come up with when you ask yourself, who am I? Any things pop in? Any ideas? Are you who you are told by the world around you? Are you a doctor, lawyer, musician? How do you identify yourself? And more importantly, why does it matter who you think you are? Why do you guys think it matters?
I think it helps you to
it helps how you think about yourself and figure out what it is that you're here to do.
Yeah.
And you're surrounded to how you interact with others. I mean, it has so many links to it.
It does. It does. It has a lot of links. There's a lot of layers that are connected to how we perceive ourselves or who we perceive ourselves to be. And the big focus of this presentation is not, there's some metaphysical, there's some bigger than physical aspects to it. You could say there's some spiritual component to it. And I'm not trying to convert, introduce, educate anyone in any of that. I'm trying to connect the dots between the physical, mental form to what's beyond and how we apply that. So it does matter who you think you are or how you think you are, because based on how and who you see yourself to be, you move through the world, you operate in the world based off of that. So if you think you are a successful entrepreneur, there's a certain way you carry yourself and present yourself to the world based on that. But this is going deeper than titles. This is going deeper than gender. This is going deeper than race. And this is not religious. Again, this is just a kind of self-awareness journey. So I'm going to move on here. Go over to my next slide. Okay, so there are three absolutes. When you ask the question, who am I? When I ask myself the question, who am I? It took a while before I even got to where I could ask that question, because what kind of question is that? That is like a very vague question. Who am I? So I learned that there were three absolutes about me that I came to understand, and I came to accept, and I came to appreciate. And these absolutes are that I am an extension of source energy. Source energy being here, the creator of all that is. You could call that God. You could call that the universe. You could call that whatever title, your belief system, whatever works for your belief system. If you're Christian, you would say God. If you're Hindu or Buddhist, you would say Buddha, you know, whatever religion, if you have a religion you practice. But I am an extension of that. We are all extensions of that which created all that is. Another absolute is that well-being and feel good is innate. It is my birthright. Coming from all that is, being an extension of all that is, that created all that is, and that as a human being, we have the ability to create, highlights that aspect of source that creates. Does that make sense? It's like we are created by a source that created everything. And then as a person, as a human being, that's an extension of source. We are also creating, right? If you want to become a nurse, you go to school, you become a nurse. You get the training and you create that new reality for yourself. If you have an idea about a drawing, you take a paper or pen and you draw it out of your imagination, out of your perception of whatever you want to create. So we are also creators. And that which we are extensions of also is a constant well-being. There's a well-being aspect of that. So it comes kind of with the template, which is why we feel great when we feel good. Like when we feel good, like if you've eaten something that tastes really good to you, if you're a foodie like me, you probably do your happy dance. Like, whoa, this is so good. You know, it feels good to feel good. Because well-being is innate for us. It is a birthright. That is in the template. Nobody comes to this plane, nobody's born into not that. It is that. We are that, okay? The third absolute, these are like irrefutable facts. No matter what your belief system is, these are irrefutable. That I am a spiritual, or you could say an energy being. We are beings. We are beings, which means that we are existing constantly, right? Being it's an ongoing activity, if you will. It's an ongoing sense of being. Does that make sense to you guys? I don't know if I'm being a little too airy. I hope that you're getting where I'm going with this. We are a spiritual being having a human experience. Again, this presentation is not designed to be too airy-fairy, but there are some things that have to be established and understood on a very fundamental level.
Most
Because
definitely.
once we get some of those things in, then it makes where we're going make more sense. Was there a question? Okay. All right. So hopefully I haven't lost anyone so far. I see. Yeah, ongoing. Okay, Jennifer, I see your comment. Thank you. So 3 absolutes about me. And again, me here being you, me, you know, us. We are extensions of source. Well-being and feeling good is innate. It's our birthright. And we are spiritual beings. And again, being here being ongoing. We're not human doings. We're human beings. These physical bodies are human bodies, as they're called. That's what they told us when we got here, right? And then we are actually energy forms having an experience in this human being. Again, human being ongoing. Okay, so I'm going to move on. Please, if there are questions, put it in the chat. Okay, let me go to the next slide. So based on that, this being, this human being that we are physically here, we can see each other virtually. What aspects, think for a moment to yourself, what aspects of you do you absolutely love? These are not things that you've been told. Well, maybe you've been told them. What things are there about you that you know about you? Maybe you could think of 2 or 3 things real quick. If you want to share it in the chat, you can share. If you want to say it out loud, you can. If you don't want to say it, you can jot it to yourself, but just think for a moment. Whatever comes to you first. 3 things about you that you absolutely love. That you know about you. You weren't told them, but you know them, or maybe you've been told.
I believe I would say that there are 2 things mainly that I really feel good when I do them. Not too long ago, when I was in Columbus, Georgia, on a working capacity, I was watching the news, and the TV station was announcing that they were gathering toys for kids that, especially in the area that has been hit by several tornadoes, will not have a good Christmas this year. So immediately, as soon as I watched that, I went to the store to buy 2 or 3 toys to give them. That sense of giving is what, in my heart, I feel so happy just by the fact that someone, in this case kids, will benefit, especially in hard situations like this that they're going through.
Yeah.
That gives me, and I mean, it's so amazing how happy I feel when I do that. And the other time I would say is when I provide for my family. My family to me is number 1 priority. And whenever I provide, especially time, which is, I believe nowadays is sometimes difficult, that also gives me the same feeling.
Yes.
You know, I provided time. I may be tired, very exhausted at the end of the day, but so happy.
Yes.
Those are the 2 things that make me most happy.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. I'll say about myself, one of the things that I know about me is that I love to see others feel good. I don't want to see I don't want to know others are suffering and there's something I can do. When I was growing up, they would always tease me and say I was a goody two shoes and I was too soft. And for a long time, I felt like that was like a flaw. Like, why couldn't I be tougher? But I've come to understand that that is a thing that is innate to me. You know what I mean? I want to share and I want to do for others because it's just something I do. So that's one of the things. But I'm going to go to the chat. You guys have been putting comments. Victoria, thank you. Loving and encouraging others. It's her comment. Yes. Unconditional love, faith, and empathy truly drives humanity. Yes, that's Faith's comment. Thank you. Let me go back through there and see what else we've got. Discernment, unconditional love, and empathy. Yes, these are some of her qualities. So all of us, for the most part, that have shared have in common giving, sharing, being supportive to others. And so these are things that we know about ourselves. Like, nobody has to tell you that. You just feel it within you. And I'm sure that there are many other qualities, characteristics, and traits that are innate to us that we are aware of. Some could even have to do with an actual skill, ability, or craft. So these are not only abstract, like I like to give. These may be things that innately you know how to do and you enjoy doing as well. One of the things that's key here about things, that aspect of you love, is that it makes you feel good. That's the key thing here. It makes you feel good doing that thing or being in that state, even if it's an activity that is innate to you. And that absolutely love, feel good feeling connects back to that well-being, innate aspect of ourselves. That's natural. That's part of the template. No matter what genetic DNA we have, that is our energetic DNA. That is our spiritual DNA. And on this earth plane where we are, duality is a really important aspect of our existence. It's like two sides of a coin. If there is no daytime, we don't know night. If there is no night, we don't know day. If something isn't tall, then we don't know short. There has to be a comparison. There has to be a duality, opposites of the same, that allows us to compare. Does that make sense? I hope that does. Because without these aspects of ourselves we absolutely love, we wouldn't know the other sides. Let me see, there's a couple.
X.
Yes. So the other side of what we absolutely love about ourselves are the aspects of ourselves we would rather leave in the dark. Those are the things we don't really want to own up to. We have a hard time looking at. We may have been criticized, or it may be constantly be put in our face. These are not behaviors. They could be behaviors that are a result of those things, but these are not behaviors necessarily. These are, maybe we're quick to anger. Maybe I don't know. What do you guys think? Maybe we are
too self-critical.
That's a big one, right?
And going back to what you were saying before, when you were like growing up and you were like, why am I so soft, or why am I so emotional? I was the same way for the longest. So
yeah,
that is something that I know that I have left in the dark for a while, but no longer. But yeah, that is definitely an aspect that I have left in the dark.
And as a result of whatever the things are that we leave in the dark, it becomes kind of the elephant in the room in our lives, more on a mental aspect, and then eventually it shows through different things we do or say, or different experiences we have. So while the thing of being soft or being too emotional or too kind-hearted, for me it was a gift, it was innate and a blessing. on the same token, it was also kind of like a curse. It was like, oh my God, I know everybody's going to say this and that, and I'm rolling my eyes in my head because I know that's what kind of response I'm going to get. So some of these things we'd rather leave in the dark often become a hindrance to our growth, because ultimately the energetic aspect of ourself that is kind of animating this body is here to experience that well-being. So it's what is in the template, but we're born, we have this life and interaction with others, so we can always remember and connect back to that well-being. So these aspects of ourselves that we'd rather leave in the dark become then obstacles to falling in love with ourselves, getting to know ourselves. And that's what this whole webinar is about. So again, if you're writing stuff down, jot down the things that you'd rather leave in the dark about yourself. Is it whatever it is? There's no judgment about it. It's just what it is, right? Or has been what it's been. For those who have overcome, worked through, understand those things, you're looking at it in retrospect, right? Because now it's not a hindrance. Now you just have an understanding about it. All right, so those things we'd rather leave in the dark, like I said earlier, they can be the elephant in the room. Often they are, and they lead us to self-sabotage, particularly here, not self-sabotage, just more specifically self-love sabotagers. Sabotagers of our well-being, our sense of well-being, which is innate. You know, babies, when they're born, come here. I keep saying come here. I hope you guys understand that just means being on earth. Right?
Yes.
If this is an abstract way for anyone to hear this, I'm sorry, but I don't know how else to put it, because that's what it is, right? We exist always. Like that's a given. That's just a fact. It's an irrefutable fact. So when a baby is born, it's coming from this well-being, from source, from wherever you think souls and spirits come from. Whatever your belief system is, it's fine. We all agree that there is existence before we're born, and there's existence after we're born. It's ongoing. We're a being. So babies get here with that template already set. We all got here with that template already set. We were given a name. We were identified by our gender. And that well-being, self-love, self-knowing is kind of there in the background. And then as we grow up, we learn and we adapt to our environment. We learn our name because people call us the name we answer. We learn what's hot and cold. We learn who's mom and dad, etc., etc. As we connect with these different things in our environment, we develop a sense of self. And because I don't know about y'all's upbringing and childhood, but there was no intentional information about self-knowing, self-love, self-understanding. Does that make sense to you guys? For me, there wasn't. And I think for many of you, that might be the case. So this has been a big piece of my getting to know myself. And because I'm not that different than anybody else here, I figured, why not? Let's share this. So these are the 7 love sabotagers, self-love sabotagers that I've come across. You guys might know of more. So please chime in, because there's lots here. So are you guys awake? Are you there?
We're here.
Yes, we're here.
I get a little carried away in my own world, so I want to make sure that I'm not talking to myself here. Let's see, there's a comment in the chat. Faith. Thanks. She put a big heart. All right, the 7 self-love sabotagers. Let's dig in. Comparing yourself to others. I put this as the first because when we get here as little babies and we're growing up, we are very much shaped, we're completely shaped by our environment. From the age of 0 to 7, is when most of our development, like the template, the mental, physical, the template that's going to create what we evolve into is set then. And one of the things that's really important here, it doesn't matter whether you're an only child or you grow up in a village of a bunch of kids or people, we're always comparing ourselves to others. And that's not a bad thing necessarily, as long as we're not downplaying ourselves and minimizing what we're bringing to the picture. So if you are a kid who, or a person who does well in school, you have good grades, you have good behavior, you're rewarded with gifts, praise, acknowledgement. So if you grew up in a house with a bunch of siblings like I did, your grades are always kind of being compared. Well, you need to be good in math like so-and-so. You need to be better at this like so-and-so. You're too lazy. These are things we hear that begin to shape this young child person that we eventually become. And so from that point, we start getting our layers of what we believe ourselves to be. We compare ourselves to others. We say, oh, I'm not really good at this, so and so. You go ahead, you better at that. And as a result of these perceptions, we create a pattern of behavior based on what we've perceived and based on what we've been told. And based on what we've been told and perceived, we start sorting our way through life based on that. So if we're perceived as the popular girl or the popular kid or the bad kid, the one who's always getting in trouble, again, I'm using kid here because I'm looking at like those elementary beginner phases of our existence here. So comparing ourselves to others becomes self-sabotager in my book, number one, because we often perceive ourselves in the negative, not always in the positive. And some compare themselves to others in the positive and often to a higher standard. So everybody who doesn't meet the standard is below me. I'm up here. Everybody else is here. Or we do the opposite. I'm down here because I don't have the car that I should have at this age and at this career point. I don't have the career yet that I was supposed to be married and have kids by 30 or 32. I don't have that yet. So, well, I'm not as, this might sound familiar to some of you. If it doesn't apply, then this doesn't apply to you at all. If we're comparing ourselves to others, ideally, maybe we use it as a motivator to help us move towards goals as opposed to negating what we have and not even acknowledging what we have, what we've established. We tend to use it in negative for ourselves. All right. Hope this makes sense to you guys. Do any of you can you think of any ways that comparing yourself to others in a negative has been detrimental to you, towards yourself, towards your well-being, towards your sense of feel good to you? Anyone have anything they want to share?
I would love to share.
Sure.
The first thing, like comparing yourself, that's one of the main things that I would say that we definitely need to unlearn. I mean, that's all around us, that we see it on television. Everybody's being compared. Compare this. Do you look like that? Do you. But me personally, I love to sing. I've always loved to sing. And when I was a kid, it would tear me up to try and sing because I would be nervous. I would be like, I'm not going to say anything in front of anyone because I don't want anyone trying to compare me to anyone else. And for that reason, that like I pushed myself down in a lot of areas, like for doing stuff like that. Again, right. In the past, this is something that I am going through and unlearning. But yeah, that for me, that was one of my biggest things.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing. That's a big thing. Another one that comes to mind as you were saying that is what we learned from our not only educational systems, our belief systems. I'll use Christianity as an example, and this is not to bash, this is not to negate in any way, but it is what it is. When you understand from just the principles that are taught, that if you have not, for instance, what's a good one with Christianity? If you are, I'm going to use one. It's a hot topic, but I'm going to put it out there and just say it because it is what it is. If you are bisexual or homosexual, you're bad. If you are, what's the regular?
Exactly.
What's the word for the regular? I've lost it.
Gay.
No, if you're not gay, if you're straight.
Heterosexual.
Straight.
Heterosexual. If you're heterosexual, you're good. You're going to a good place when you leave Earth. And if you're not heterosexual, you're bad. That's a comparison to others that is from the Christian principles and teachings. They have the point and they have the information to back that. But when you come from the point of self, being aware of self, it's not a good feeling. There's nothing wrong with you because you are that way or choose to be that way. Whether you choose it or not, it's neither here nor there. The fact is that's a comparison that has a negative effect and a negative outcome based on how an individual, a being, will see themselves and how they're treated and how they treat others. So you can see how potentially detrimental that is. Now, whether we agree on that opinion-wise or not, it's a different subject. And I'm not trying to break that piece apart. That's just an example. If you compare a bunch of siblings and 3 are successful and 2 are struggling and 1 is okay, and successful here by society standards means you're making X amount of $1,000 per year or whatever your monetary system is. You're able to support your family and do for others. That's considered a good thing. But if you're not and you're dependent, that's considered a bad thing. And in some ways, economically, you could say that. But the ultimate goal here is the sense of self, the sense of well-being. If that begins to then eat at you and it becomes a reason for you to shrink out of your well-being, then that is a self-love sabotager, because the original self does not know that aspect. It's just, I'm here, I'm well, I want to feel good. So that's the premise here. So hopefully nobody is seeing more into it than that. The second self-sabotager is not allowing room for mistakes as we learn and grow. This again would come from a variety of reasons, a variety of opportunities. Again, I keep coming back to upbringing because that's such a big shaper of our future self. If you're under a lot of pressure always to perform, to be a certain way and act a certain way and produce a certain outcome, there may not be a lot of room for you to make mistakes as you learn and grow. So think of this here as a toddler who's learning to walk. A toddler who's learning to walk often crawls first. Sometimes they crawl backwards. Often they crawl forwards, or they do both. Then they find a way to find something to hold on to, and they stand up and they fall back down and they sit for a while. They might cry or they'll try again. We don't yell and scream at the toddler and say, get your butt up and walk. Like, we don't do that, right? We let the toddler do what the toddler does. And eventually the toddler learns how to walk, right? So think of the self here being the same way. We can look at the toddler stumbling and falling back down as a mistake. When we're grown-ups, it's a mistake, it's a mess up. When we're toddlers, it's, oh, how cute. Let me get my camera out and film him. He's trying to walk. Look how cute. Oh, we want to catch those steps that are not supported steps. Like, oh my God, first step. Whoa! It's a big deal then. You're riding a bicycle, trying to learn. You fall, you get up, you get back on. You fall, you get up, you get back on. Skateboard, same thing. So think of the self here. And here, the self has no age. This is just that energetic aspect of you that always is. Give yourself room for mistakes as you learn, because that's how you grow. Most of us, or a lot of us, have not done that because there was no accommodation or no room for that. Or maybe there were outcomes that were really, really depending on what we did, working out or not working out, however. So that's a self-sabotager number 2. then we become really hard on ourselves. And I think, Bree, that was you that mentioned being very self-critical, very, very hard on ourselves. And it may be that we're looking up to certain others who support us in different ways. And so then, even if we are allowing ourselves room for mistakes, they're not. But their opinions are really important to us. So then you have the same issue going. Okay, I'm going to move on here. If there are no comments, please put it in the chat box. So that second point connects with the third point, not being compassionate with yourself. This kind of goes without saying. If a child has struggled to ride their bicycle and fallen off it several times, we don't go over there and beat them. At least not if we're being proper or kind grown-ups or kind people. We don't beat the child that's struggling to walk or trying to figure it out. And sometimes some of us do have a harder time getting stuff figured out than others. So when we're not being compassionate with ourselves, we suppress that aspect of well-being that's innate to us. So being compassionate with ourselves means giving room, just saying, okay, you know better, you know different. Being a little more gentle than just being harsh, overly critical. Now, should we be self-aware and criticize ourselves? Absolutely. We don't need to stick our head in the sand and act like there's nothing there. But we should be able to do that in a way that we can benefit and grow from and not be stuck with. So
view those things about yourself in a non-judgmental fashion.
Yes.
Don't allow it to be negative or positive. It just is, and you have compassion for all aspects, either dark or light, of yourself.
Yes. Have compassion for the dark or the shadow aspects of ourselves that we connected with. Like I mentioned earlier, they're the things we love about ourselves, and they're the things we may not love about ourselves. They're not things we really have to hate. They're just there. It's like if you go in a room, there is no off switch. There's only light usually. You either turn off the light and the room is dark, or there's light because there's light. There's no switch to turn it to dark. There's only the light switch. So I'm using that metaphor or analogy to help you guys understand that there is only really well-being and feel-goodness because of the two sides of the coin that we are in on the earth plane. There's day and night, there's up and down, there's tall and short. So if we get to start connecting with the well-being that is there, then the parts that are not feel good don't overwhelm us, because those shadow aspects can overwhelm us, can freeze us in place, can keep us from living and feeling good. And that feel goodness that we connect with within ourselves then trickles into all our relationships, every last one, romantic, family, even the relationship with your pets, because you're tapped into that which is the feel good that already exists there.
And I think that this related to the previous point. What happens sometimes is that we see mistakes as something bad, when mistakes, I believe, should be seen as an opportunity to learn. So it's, in a way, it's something positive. I heard a quote from Thomas Alva Edison in a movie, and the thing was that Thomas Alva Edison, before he invented the light bulb, had made several experiments, over 1,000, and he failed all of them. So someone criticized Alva Edison for failing, and then Thomas Alva Edison said, it's not that I failed, it's that now I know more than 1,000 ways how not to do this.
Yes.
So yes, very important. Yeah, mistakes, we all make them, but the good thing is learn from it. If we don't learn from it, of course, it's going to turn bad, but
Yes.
we got to look at the good side of it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. That is a great, great example and illustration. And believe it or not, what we might look at as a little mistake that we may have made, or a poor choice we made, has become or will become a big mountain in the lives of many people. It becomes now the way they continue to judge themselves and live. So think about celebrities. When they have a mess up, or they did drugs, or they were caught with a this or whatever, everybody has them kind of on a spotlight because they're a celebrity, like they're not human anymore, right? And then they make a mistake or poor choice or whatever it is, then they're judged by all who have opinions and treated by those who will give them contracts or cancel them as though that one mistake is the definition of them. But the mistakes don't define them, just like they shouldn't define us. And because the celebrities put so much value on the opinions of whomever, they believe it. Well, at least that's how some of them look, especially when you hear of those who commit suicide or become depressed or who knows what. So that's an extreme example, but it's very similar to what a lot of us may have experienced, because we then settle for less than, or we punish ourselves, so to speak, because of that 1, 2, or 3, or 10 mistakes. What does it matter? Our soul self, our energetic self wants to feel. That's the point. That's why we're here, right? On the other side, before we're babies and born, that's all we know. When we come here, we're always striving back for that. That's why I call this falling in love with you, because you kind of get to know it and you're like, oh, I love it. Hopefully that's what you guys are already doing. So anyway, I will move on from this point. So self-sabotager number 4, not honoring our emotions. So one thing I want to say here about emotions is that there are many definitions for the word emotion, but one key thing I hope you take from this today is that emotions are energy in motion. Energy in motion. When something has happened, we've experienced something, or we perceive something, there is always a response, good, bad, or indifferent. There is a response. Our physical body is like a it's a responder. Our senses, our 5 senses, 6 senses are responders to the energy we're interacting with all the time. So the emotions become messengers. It's like if you have a fever, the only way you know what your temperature is using a thermometer. So think of your emotions, think of our emotions being a thermometer that you're going to take and check your temperature. And if it's very hot, you'll know, and you'll know the number. Now, you might feel yourself and know your body is hot and burning, but the thermometer is going to tell you how hot you are. So think of the emotions like a thermometer. They are only giving you a message. Now, if you don't like the message that the thermometer gave you and you fling it and break it, it doesn't change that it's giving you the information. What you do with that information is now what would help you, help us, help me move forward and evolve and grow. So when we don't honor our emotions, we tend to stuff them and pack them down. Maybe the timing is not good. It's not convenient to respond the way we want to respond or do what we want to do. Maybe we want to deal with it later. Whatever the case is, we have to be able to read that thermometer and understand it says your temperature is 99 point, or your temperature is 98.6, or it's too low. Whatever it is, emotions are just messengers saying that we have moved away from that innate point. We've shifted either towards feeling better or feeling worse. That's the message emotions give. Feeling better or feeling worse. There's a whole wide spectrum of a list of emotions on that thermometer. And this message from the thermometer is non-judgmental. It's not caring whether you're pissed off, depressed, joyful, appreciating. It's just telling you this is how you're feeling, because the original template was well-being, feel good. So when we ignore the emotions that come up or we suppress them, we are saying no to an aspect of our self-well-being, self-love, self-existence. I hope this makes sense to you guys.
By not listening to your emotions, you're not listening to what your inner being is trying to tell you about yourself or about a particular situation that you may be in, and you're choosing, almost in a sense, choosing to not look at something that could potentially use your assistance or love or growth or whatever it looks like at that particular time.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yes, thank you for that, Bree. Just responding here. Yes, so that is something that is really key. We have to be able to at least listen and honor those emotions. Whatever they're telling us is just saying, okay, you might need to reset or keep going. Why is it that you feel that way? What's going on in the background? That's where we delve in. And that can be a hard place to be in because, again, the situation or circumstances may not be ideal for us to deal with it at that time, or we want to look at it later, or who knows why. But we need to honor the emotions and find a way to process them that is not self-detrimental, because that's the whole point here. It should not be self-detrimental, and it should be supportive of growth. Okay, so I'm going to move on to our next one. We're kind of more than halfway through the presentation, so I'm going to go through the rest of these. Bearing or ignoring difficult emotions, that kind of ties in with the previous point. We might decide that those emotions or feelings are not really important. For instance, when we compare ourselves and we are judging ourselves or deciding on a path based on whatever we have felt, what's a good one that I could use? We tend to just not ever get to the bottom of it. So if we feel insecure about maybe a situation that we're in or insecure about ourselves, instead of just getting to the bottom of it, I'm feeling insecure or I'm feeling inadequate because I wanted to have this degree by this point. I thought that by now I should have my this, or my child should be in this position, or I should have already had a husband or a wife or whatever, partner. Then we feel insecure. What we might do is turn around and lash out and respond in a way that is bigger than the situation required. And once we start really listening to the message from the emotions, then we can get to the bottom of it. Wait, it's not that Bree really did anything to me. Her message just invited me to a get together with friends, using you here, Bree, but she just invited me to go hang out. And now I'm really mad at her and thinking that she's very selfish. She's always wanting to show off that she has this or that. I'm going off on a tangent and blocking her or saying things about her that are maybe not true, or projecting my own insecurities into the situation. And the truth of it, if I just sit there with the emotion that is uncomfortable, is that there were some things about myself, that I did not really, that came up that I didn't like. So I'm just going to splash it over to Bree, because maybe she's invited me at a point where I don't have a partner and it's a partner thing. I don't know if you guys are following me, but hopefully you are. We have to give our emotions, the difficult ones. The difficult emotions here are the ones that are on the other end of the thermometer of feel good. From boredom, there's a whole list. I can't go into the list because it's going to be way too much for this presentation, but from boredom down to despair, depression, apathy, it's the other end of the spectrum that does not feel good. And from before boredom, which I don't remember what that is, all the way up to blissful, loving feelings, appreciation, feel goodness. That's the other end of the thermometer. So once we ignore these difficult emotions, we just keep piling it on, and often it makes our interactions with others around us, especially close loved ones, very challenging. So I don't know if anybody here has challenging relationships with certain people in their lives. Often it's family members or partners or spouses. Start looking at what emotions come up that are difficult. What is it that you just can't stand? And then sit with that for a bit. Don't judge it. Just sit with it. Write it down. When I'm around so-and-so, or when so-and-so does or says, this is what comes up for me. Sit with that. And just honor it. Give it voice. Let it be heard. We may have been told, in my case, you're too soft. You're a softie. You always let people run all over you. You may have been told that about that emotion, and so you've learned to ignore it and suppress it, or think it's a flaw. So
there is something that I experienced when I was a teenager. It's very silly, but it's got the message that you're trying to convey here. One day I was at my parents' home. I was in college, I believe, and I was watching TV on the second floor, and to my right, you can watch something that is in front of you, but you can still see something sideways, right? So I saw that there was a light in my parents' room that was going on and off, and I knew there was nobody home. So at first it was like I wasn't sure, but when I turned, I saw the light going on and off. So at first it was this, of course, feeling of uncertainty of what's going on there. But then I told myself, I know there is nobody, so something must be going on. So I went inside my parents' bedroom, and the lamp on my dad's night table, the plug that goes into the wall was kind of loose. So it was moving, and that caused the light to go on and off. So once I saw it, I said, okay, this is the problem. So I unplugged it, right? If I had not done that, if I had stayed there without going to my parents' bedroom, I would have felt the fear of there is something or somebody in there, right? So yeah, in a way, I believe that relates to what you were saying.
Yeah.
It's just we should face it as opposed to ignore it, because by facing it, whether the outcome is good or not, at least we know the outcome.
We know. Yes.
And that will give us peace.
Yes. Yeah. It will. Thank you for that. And it would also help us as we move forward to understand what are called triggers. Many of us are familiar with the word triggers. And if you know you have a certain way you respond all the time, but you've not identified the trigger, that means you've not connected with the emotional backdrop. What is in the background that is making you respond that way all the time? So if you keep ignoring the triggers or ignoring the emotion, you never get to the triggers. So that was a good example, and I like that it was very abstract. Like, it wasn't an emotion per se outside of a fear response. Like, oh my God, what's there? And if you're superstitious, your mind could go all over the place with that. But you went and figured it out. So, yay. So I'm gonna move on. There's a lot more in each of these PowerPoints. I'm trying to make what's there very succinct. So the next thing is not owning your own energy or creating boundaries. When we don't have boundaries to how accessible we are to others, we easily get overwhelmed and run over. So for instance, if we're someone who likes to help others, we want to help people feel good, feel better, we want to share, but we're sharing to the point that we are actually going without. Like, we're going without rest, we're going without the ability to sustain ourselves. we are not honoring our own boundaries. We're not honoring our physical boundaries because we're pushing ourselves over and over and over again. Or we're not able to say no, or we're not saying no. So every time somebody asks us to do something, can I borrow you this? Can I have you that? Can I come over? Can I? We're always saying, yeah, sure, because we want them to feel good and feel comfortable. But we're not honoring the fact that, well, maybe I just wanted to relax today. I just wanted to be home by myself. Maybe I have my own things I want to do. So it's important that we honor our boundaries, because that helps establish that sense of self that is nurtured in that way, whatever that way is for you. And this is something that I really struggled with personally for a long time. Being able to own my own boundaries and be able to be comfortable saying no without worrying about what others say or think. It took me a long time to get to that, because it was so important that I did what my parents asked and what was expected of me. So it was almost like being a people pleaser. And it's not because I wanted to impress anyone, it's because it felt good when people were pleased. So it was really only in my late adult life, and I'm still relatively young, that I really started stepping into this and being okay with saying, I can't do this right now, or I will do this at this point, so that I don't feel like the person thinks, well, she's just being mean or inconsiderate. And this goes into our personal relationships as well. I have 6 sisters, so I grew up we're always sharing stuff. And God help you if you were mad that one of your sisters wore your shoes without asking you, because it's like you're wasting your energy even yelling at them, like, why are you wearing my shoes? Why are you wearing my shoes? There was no boundary there from a growing up childhood perspective. However, as a grown-up now, I'm not going to go to any of my sisters' closets and just take their stuff and wear it, because I understand there is that permission aspect, right? They might not mind if I do, but I would mind if they came in and just took my stuff. So it's like, protect your own energy, protect your boundary, and honor it, because it is valid and it is valuable. It doesn't matter how silly it may seem, it is valuable, and we have to give it voice and we have to honor it, because that's part of what nourishes and nurtures that aspect of ourself that is always ongoing. And this goes, of course, way deeper, because some of us end up with burdens that were not our own, only because we could not say no, or we could not outline when and how we want to commit to situations or relationships, or whatever those commitments may be. So it's important to honor that. If there are any comments, I'm just making sure I don't miss anything being put in the chat. So I think this is the last of the list of 7 self-sabotagers: not trusting your own intuition. So intuition here, I'm looking at it as inner vision, that inner knowing, that knowing that you can't explain where you know or why you know, but you just do. It's really important that we trust it, because it is innate. It is part of our soul self's DNA. It's like, as they say, the 6th sense. It's a sense that is not tangible, like taste, smell, vision, hearing, or touch. It's just in there, and it's more of a receiving, like the physical body. If you can think of it being like a radio, back when radios were really used, you had to tune the radio to the station that you want to listen to. And somewhere in the sky, there's a satellite that when you tune to the right connection, you get that broadcast. You get jazz, you get rock and roll, you get whatever you're trying to get. So think of ourselves here as the receiver. We're the receiver of that information. You're not thinking about the stuff, you just know. You get the sense of, oh, don't go over there today, or maybe I should call so-and-so today. And then they call you, or you don't do, or you do, and then you get confirmation. That's that intuition, that's that inner vision. So we really have to tune into that, because when we're not honoring our boundaries, when we are not honoring our emotions or listening to them, it becomes harder to get that receiving information. A lot of us who are, whatever our belief system is, if we pray or if we have a worship routine, we're always asking for this, asking for that, praying for this, praying for that. We have to be able to open our receivers and allow the information to come in. And when we connect to that higher aspect of ourselves, which is energetic, and use some of these bullet points I've shared, it makes us have a more smoother journey, more well-being, more feel good. When you trust your intuition, you tend to get more of that. So, anybody have a comment? Anyone want to share anything about any of this so far? Trusting your intuition or not trusting it? Have you had a situation where you didn't listen to that inner voice and you wished you had? Or you did and then things worked out or didn't work out? Anyone? No. Okay. If you don't want to share,
I think intuition could be seen as a channel that we need to leave open, because it's, even though depending on different beliefs people may have of different kinds, is a channel of communication with, it's hard to say, but it's channel of communication with maybe with the spirituality, with other beings spiritually, and I believe all of our in our lives we have experienced many different types of intuition or moments when through intuition we have received messages. I believe there are countless of examples on an everyday basis. Why I did not go to that place, why I did not take that route, why I did this and did not do that. It's amazing, but it's something that we should focus on and keep it open. I've had co-workers who would say, who would like turn off that channel of intuition, like saying as if, no, that's not good to do that. That's not, I believe, a good decision. Whenever we have channels to communicate, these are channels that we should keep open, you know.
Yeah.
And experiences in life will show you that, oh, why didn't I do this? You know, it's very important.
Yes. And a key that would help those who are not really familiar with their intuition or connecting with inner vision or that insight from inside, one of the keys, and I had to learn this, it's unfortunate that you have to actually learn it if you're not told it and it's not part of your upbringing or there's nowhere you really get that information, then you can be overwhelmed with the information out there. But if you have the information from somewhere, one of the ways to know that it's right guidance or information is that it feels good. It usually feels good, especially when the dots connect. It's like, oh man, I knew it. You have this well-being that bubbles up. That bubble up excitement, well-being, feel-goodness is the true self. It's the true aspect of us that is that original template. It's part of that original template. So if you don't have a clue what I'm saying, just notice, start to observe when you get little, I should do this or do that, whatever it may be. And it may be tiny little ones. And then all of a sudden you start seeing things connect. If you believe that there's a higher guidance, some believe in angels, some believe in guides, whatever, ancestors that are supporting our journey here on earth, then you will be able to be more connected with that because it's all around us always. So I also like to think of that inner vision being the same inner vision that the plants have when the seasons change. Nobody comes and tells them it's time to shed your leaves, it's winter. Nobody says it's time for this seed to grow, so start coming through the ground. It's inner vision, it's inner knowing. When the seasons change, nobody comes and tells them it's time to shed your leaves, it's winter. Nobody says it's time for this seed to grow, so start. Coming through the ground. It's inner vision, it's inner knowing from the template of that thing's creation. It's just there. So as a human being, we tend not to really tap into that. And it can be a really good way to make your life more joyful, more enjoyable. Okay, I'm gonna move on from there if there's no additional question. So
excuse me, Sonia, I just wanted to comment on that. Oftentimes we don't listen to the inner man or the inner spirit, the discerning spirit. That is, within us, and that's God-given.
Mhm.
So there's no reason to really doubt that voice that's telling us the right thing to do. It's telling us, but we doubt that, and that's where we mess up.
Yep.
We all have that ability, but if we don't listen, and if we're always busy listening to other outside sources, we'll never be able to connect, and we'll never be able to hear. That's why meditation is so important.
Yes, that's the point. Thank you, Victoria. And you just said something that I'm getting like, okay, connect the dots. So remember I said the first self-sabotager was comparing ourselves to others. We're always thinking about, but what did so-and-so say? But what did they tell me at church? What did they tell me here? And then we block that inner knowing. We just ignore it because it's not what we were told. And again, if we're comparing ourselves on the negative spectrum, we really don't listen because, the reason we don't feel good if we're having any of these self-sabotagers at play is because we are strayed far from the original template. And again, the mistakes, we shouldn't punish ourselves about the mistakes. It's like, think of yourself in that situation like a child learning how to ride a bicycle. Nobody goes and beats the child on the head for falling off the bicycle, or a toddler learning how to walk. So be compassionate. Let's be compassionate with ourselves. Man, I didn't listen to my instinct that last time, but I'm gonna listen now. Man, girl, you gotta do better. You just pay attention, and you'll start being you open up. And if you, like you mentioned, meditation, if we quiet our minds, meditation is just cutting out a few minutes to just quiet your mind. That's it. You can listen to something in particular. You can do something in particular. You don't have to shut up necessarily, but just get mindful about whatever the thing is and allow the information to come in, whatever it is. If you have a problem you're trying to solve, you're trying to figure it out, you're trying to make a big decision, be still. Stop trying to figure it out. Just be still and let the information come in and trust that inner guidance. I see a comment here. Okay. Oh, that's Bree. Thanks. Yes, thanks, Bree. So I'm going to continue with that. Thank you so much for that point, Victoria. So I'm getting near the end. I'm sorry. Okay.
You're welcome. I think I just had one other person join, and she wanted to know, what is this? So can you just summarize a little bit, just to not keep you too long, but she wanted to know what this was. So in a quick nutshell, Can you tell her? Thank you.
Yes. So yeah, and I'm sorry I didn't acknowledge everybody who joined after we got going. Thank you for being here. I am Sonia Thames. This webinar is an intro to a series that is beginning in January. It's a three-part series called Falling in Love with You, The Journey to Radical Self-Love and Acceptance. So what I've done here is look at the basics of the self as an energy being having a human experience, and the template that is innate to us, which is well-being and feel-goodness, and the things that are obstacles in the way of that are general. The full series is what I'm about to explain here now. It's self-inquiry. So we've done a lot of self-inquiry here already. Some of you may have been jotting things down or just had something to think about. Like, okay, I'm gonna think about that. That's the goal of this. So self-inquiry is the ultimate self-care, because when you look at yourself in the mirror and you say, what's going on here? Why are my eyes puffy? Whatever is going on, then we start being able to respond and reflect. The goal here is to clear the blockages, clear the obstacles, get to know them in a non-judgmental way of what's in the way of us experiencing complete self-acceptance and enjoying our life. So the series is 3 parts. This was just the intro. The second part, so it's broken into 3 modules. So the next module it'll begin January 2nd from 3 to 4:30 p.m. Eastern. That looks at the 4 roommates, the 4 layers that make us. These 4 layers that make us are the energy form, the thought form, so our mental state. The energy form is our spiritual self. Again, this is not religious. This is not dogmatic. Let me put it that way. There's no dogma here. This is just information that you can use for personal development, personal growth. The 4 roommates include the energy self, the thought self, the emotional self, which we've talked a bit about today, and the physical self, the actual one that's doing stuff, moving around. We're going to meet the 4 roommates. There's several activities and different parts that we're going to look at just so we have a better understanding of ourselves, not just as physical form, but the other components. A little bit of biology here. We talk about how the body responds and what the connection between the emotions and the physical body, the thought, emotion, and physical body are. Okay, so that's module 2, which will begin January 2nd. Module 1, January 2nd. Module 2 is going to delve into the obstacles to self-acceptance and again, self-love. And for that, I'm going to use my notes real quick. We are going to look at the key things that block this self-acceptance include unhealed traumas, the unhealed inner child. Every time we experience what we perceive as trauma, it doesn't matter whether it's a really, truly traumatic event or not, an aspect of ourself gets stuck there. An aspect of our energy self potentially gets stuck there. And we continue to react to anything similar to that from that point only, because that's the information we've locked in. So I'll give you an example, really personal example for myself here. Growing up, I'm the oldest of 7 girls. I was a bedwetter for a long time, like much longer than I should have been a bedwetter. Imagine sharing a bed with your siblings and always being the one who wet the bed. Imagine always having to wake up in the morning in a wet nightgown, have to take the mattress out. My first memory of bedwetting was not actually in a bed. When I was in maybe kindergarten, I was about 6 or 7 years old. I don't know what age that is, school-wise, but had a teacher who had an issue with my mom. For whatever reason, my mom has been a nurse my whole life, and there was some medical procedure she wanted my mom to help her with that was not within my mom's scope of practice. My mom was like, hey, I don't do that. I'm not part of that. And the lady took it out on me. I didn't know this. I found this whole thing out like way later. But she wouldn't let me go to the bathroom. So during class, if I needed to use the bathroom, she said no. I had to sit there and hold it till I could use the bathroom at break. And I mean, imagine telling a 6 or 7 year old not to go to the bathroom when they have to go. So I would wet myself in class. I remember maybe the first time that happened, and she had everybody gather around my desk and shame me. They called my name and sang a little song and said, "Shame, shame." So shame, that was a very, very traumatic experience for me. Like, I remember it. And a little bit of me shakes inside when I remember that, because that set the template. Now, I don't remember if I was a bedwetter before that ongoing, but it started really from there. So most of my youth, that was a fear. I would not go for sleepover. I couldn't go to sleepovers. That was a trauma that did not even get acknowledged as a trauma until I was way older. But what it created for me was a shadow aspect of myself that was wrapped in shame, that was wrapped in guilt. You know better. I couldn't drink water past 6 p.m. I was given all these herbal things to drink and eat so that I don't wet the bed. I mean, it was a trauma response. It wasn't because my bladder couldn't hold it. And then, so I mean, you can fill in the gaps. So that inner child, that trauma, whatever that trauma may be for you or have been, becomes the way you respond in a lot of ways. So shame was a big thing for me. Guilt was a big thing. And those are emotions that feel so far from originally feeling good. That template that I came with was fractured at that point. And so with module 2, we go into that. Now, we're not going to go into your personal stories unless you want to share, but it's a workshop. So it's like there are activities and things to introspect and work with to help us move past that. That's what we're going to be doing in module 2, unhealed traumas and the inner child, dealing with these emotions and feelings that are really hard to work through and understand, looking at the pros and the cons of them, and then working through them. Okay. And then module 3 is the way forward, signs of healing and growth. What now? So I've looked at this stuff, I've worked through this stuff. Some people here may have already worked through this stuff and may just want to revisit. Some may not have. In my work, I deal with help a lot of people through this second step here. Obstacles to self-acceptance, working through traumas, getting back to that original template, which the soul self knows. And until we get to that template and live from that template, we're stuck. Okay, so those are the 3 modules. They begin January 2nd through January 16th. It's 1.5 hour, kind of like it's a group coaching kind of, but also like what we did today, a presentation. The full series is $149 if you choose to move forward with it. And there's another option of a full series plus a one-on-one session with me, which is $199. So those who need more, like delve in, can use that second piece. Because what we're going to do throughout the webinar series is not necessarily each person's this or that. They're going to go through a variety of things, and we're going to be interacting and have some activities to go along with it that will help us get back to that original template. So that's what I've got for you guys today. Are there any questions? Any comments? Anything in the chat? Can you guys hear me? Yeah.
I hear you.
Okay, good. I was making sure my connection didn't drop. So I'm going to stop the share now and just go back to the regular screen. Went way past the time. So any questions, comments, light bulbs, anything that anybody wants to ask about or share? Feel free
I
to.
think it's always very beautiful to have these questions posed to you in a different way from somebody that has, whether you agree with the mentality or not. It's like the questions are very foundational questions to begin asking yourself when you're on the journey of self-healing and self-love. And this workshop that Sonia is putting on is, I'll speak. So I work with Sonia, for those of you who joined in a little later, and I've been working with Sonia probably about 6 months or so. And this woman helps me on so many levels. So I do a lot of her digital work and her web designs and techie things. This woman has helped me on so many levels to understand myself and understand why I go through the things that I go through and understand why I think the things that I think. So it's, this workshop that she's putting on is really, it's like if you're ready to commit to diving into who you are and you kind of need a foundation of what that looks like, this workshop is perfect. It's that's all I'm saying.
Thank you, Bree.
Yeah.
Thank you. So, that's what I got. I'm sorry I did go over the time. I was not very mindful of it. I get into my own little world with time and I lose track of everything else. But I do want to thank you all for making the time to be here today. Like, I so appreciate it and do not take it for granted. You guys know how to reach me. My website is wellnessvibes.net. I think everybody here, most of you have my number. I can put it in the chat as well. If you do want to sign up, it's going to be open to sign up until the 2nd. It's on the website. If you just want to do a one-on-one and don't necessarily want to do the webinar, that's fine as well. So I'm just putting my info. Here's website. Wellnessvibes.net, and my number is 205-529-0164. So thank you all. Let me make sure that, okay, there it is. Yes, so there were several people who joined from overseas, and I'm so thankful. Like, I didn't get to really, I saw them when they came on. I'm not sure if they're still on now, but thank you all so much. Enjoy the rest of your day. And I'm sure we'll be meeting again soon.
Thank you, Sonia. Thank you.
Have a wonderful day.
You too.
Thank you.